Welcome everyone to another CTC software webinar. My name is Sean Zerbis. I am the Director of BIM Development here at CTC Software. And today we're going to go through the HIVE CMS User Learning Series, Part 2, using and inserting content out of the HIVE CMS. Now, I'm not entirely sure because I joined here in the last minute. I want to make sure my audio is coming through clearly. If you guys could give me a quick little raise hand in the attendees window, or if you could give me a question saying, yep, everything's coming through good, that would be fantastic. I just want to make sure you're able to hear me clearly as we go through today's discussion about how to use the CMS. Oh, fantastic. I'm seeing hands get raised. That means my audio is coming through good. If for any reason my audio does fall off, feel free to just throw it into questions and be like, hey, Sean, you're getting all choppy. That would be glorious. All right, let's jump right in and start talking about today's session here. HIVE CMS User Learning Series, inserting and using content. So first of all, you're in the HIVE CMS. That's fantastic. In our last session, we talked about searching and all the different ways you can search and filter. Not all the different ways, but many of the common early ways you can use to search and filter. And so now you've found something. You found what you're looking for, and you need to know how do you use this content within your design environment or within your daily processes. So I want to go through today all of the different ways in which you can insert content into a model, or you can use content out of HIVE. What are all the different possible ways, and what are some really important nuances, especially as this relates to Revit content when you're inserting content? What does that mean if you're going to reinsert something or reload something? What's the ramifications? And so we're going to take a look at that today and go into detail. As always, I encourage you to throw questions into the question window, and I will do my best to answer those in line. Or I also have a huge Q&A session scheduled for the end of this discussion, and I'm going to hang out for a while and make sure that we have time to go through questions on how to use HIVE and how to best insert content. So we're going to go over a couple of major topics here today. Very specifically, in painstaking detail, I'm going to talk about the double click within HIVE. What does it do? How does it work? What are the ramifications of that choice? We're going to take a look at the right-click insertion options, and very specifically with the right-click insertion options, we're going to use that to insert multiple items in one single step. And we're also going to talk about ramifications of that choice. And we're going to take a look at how to update content in your models and using that off of the right-click, because a lot of the stuff happens off the right-click when we're inserting content. And so being able to leverage that is kind of important. So let's go and jump live into the HIVE environment. Do a little bit of a recap because I'm going to have to search for something real quick here. So, hang on, pull this back forward. I am going to run a search for some templates. In fact, I'm intentionally going to go here to my search button. I'm not just going to search it off the top because I happen to know within my libraries that one of my libraries is my templates. And I also happen to know that I am only looking for Revit content. And if I hit apply here, the way that I have my library organized, I am presented with templates that relate directly to the version of Revit that I happen to have open. So this is just a review quickly of some of our search stuff. My version is 2020. It's giving me content that I can use in 2020. It's giving me stuff that might be older than because it can be upgraded, but it's giving it to me. So let's get into our first example here. I'm going to pin HIVE to the foreground for right now. And I am going to talk about the double click. I'm going to pull HIVE here forward. I have this template ready to go. My Revit environment has nothing opened yet. It's just sitting on the splash page, and that's fine. There's no file yet. But I'm going to double click on this and just kind of see what happens. When I double click, this being a project, starter project, a project template for me, but it's not an RTE typical file. So it's not going to be just a single user. This is actually a multi-user work sharing enabled project, the way that I have mine set up. So this is going to open up detached from central and ask me if I want to preserve or discard my work sets, if I want to do some other things here. The typical default here is the best one when you're opening up project files out of HIVE, and that is to detach and preserve the work sets. So you're starting in a brand new model. So this is the first use here of double click. Okay, I'm going to open this up. All my work set starts me in a brand new project model. Now, pause your minds for a second. I have to use a different tool real quick outside of Hive because I don't have any floor plans. I'd forgotten about that. My template is pretty bare. It has nothing in it. And so I'm going to go to my CTC software tab, and I'm going to use a tool off my project suite to very quickly leverage one of my other tools that I have at my fingertips, which is the View Creator, to go through and generate some floor plans because my template's set up in such a way that I can do this. So new construction, check the box, yep, add those to my list, create my views. All right, so this just generated for me a couple of floor plan views that I can leverage and I can draw within, so we actually have a proper, modeling environment and design environment. Go to my general architectural floor plan here and we can start doing some drawing. Let's talk about using different kinds of content here. If I start just the basic wall command in Revit, if I have walls in my project, and I'll always have at least one, I can use those. But of course, my goal is to talk today about Hive and bring something new into my model. So let's bring something new in. Let's run a search. In fact, I'm going to run a similar search to what I had done in our first session, which is going to be something like type, if I could spell, if I could capitalize things properly as well, type A. And I'm going to put this in quotes because I only want back something that exclusively matches type A, just to minimize the results down so we're not looking at a ton of items. We're going to focus on just a couple of items here today. So here is a wall type. This is a wall component. Normally, you'd have to use transfer project standards to bring this in, but just like I did for the template, all I'm going to do is double click. So once again, we're talking about double click here. This is the key. I'm double clicking something. So double click on this, and it's going to bring it into my project. And if I don't have any other commands running, it's going to initiate the draw command. So if I go over here, it's loaded this wall interior type A 4 7/8 wall that I double clicked on, and it selected it as the wall that it's drawing right now. And so in my model, I can begin doing whatever it is I want to do because this wall is here available for me to do a thing. Obviously, I wouldn't use this as an exterior wall for a structure, but ignore that. I just brought in a wall type and I'm using it. Now, what happens if something in my model is different than what's in Hive? Let's take a look at what happens then, okay? I'm going to go grab this wall and let's make a very intentional change to this, all right? Let's go into the edit type here and let's edit this structure so that it's no longer a 4 7/8 inch wall. It's going to be something ridiculously larger. Let's say it's going to be 11 5/8 inches. Sure, why not? So I'm going to hit OK here. This is now a 1 foot wall. These all got way bigger. And we're going to try and use this wall again out of Hive. Once again, talking about double click. All right, that's the key, double click. So I found some content. What's in Hive is different here than what is in my model. That's the key. If I double click this again, load this into my project, what is Hive going to do? Is it going to redefine my wall, or is it just going to draw what's already there? You notice what this did? This did not update the definition of this type A 4 7/8 inch wall. Did not update it. That's key for Hive, for Revit. When I load something in, if I double click on it, it's going to load it if it does not exist. And once it loads it, if it's already here, it just uses what's in my model on that double click. If that same name is here as what's here, it just uses it. It does not load something new. Understand that. That's really important with that double click functionality. If it's already in, it just uses what's there. Let's load something else real quick to kind of see an example of this. Let's go and search for swing single and see what we come back with. Yeah, one door, perfect. That's what I was hoping for. I have one door that exactly matches swing _ single. This door has about 5 types in it. I can tell you that because if we open up the details pane, and we're going to talk about the details pane more later, but 6 types, I'm sorry. No, 5. Yeah, 5 types. I can count once in a while, and it tells me right there 5 types. 5 types, okay? If I double click this door, I go into my model, It's going to load it, and it's going to let me choose which types it is that I want to load. Let's choose 2. Not going to load them all, just going to choose 2 and load those specific types. There is an option when there's more than one to load all, and there's also the option, if you really wanted to not display this type selector and just always load all. I don't typically recommend that. That's not usually best practice, because if you end up with a family with 400 types, it's going to load all 400 types into your project, and that's not really desirable. You want to be selective. So I always let this thing show, and I always make my choices. If I want all when it's here, I just hit load all. If I don't want all, I can be very picky and choose to load specific types in. So I'm going to load these 2, the 36-inch by 84-inch doors. This is, imperial-based content. So if you're watching me from, outside the US and you're using metric, understood, I'm still bound to the archaic imperial system right now. So we're going to deal with this. 36-inch by 84-inch, load that type in. It's going to, in this case, do the quick one-time upgrade because it was from 2018, bringing it into a 2020 model. And then it's going to initiate the placement of one of those 2 types, whichever one I happen to have chosen last in that dialog. Okay, so if I wanted to insert just the basic flush panel door, 36-inch by 84-inch, I can do that, drop that into my model. That door now exists. We're all happy. What happens with this when, once again, I double click? This is the key here again, double clicking content. So what I'm going to do is grab that exact same door once again. I'm not in any command right now. I'm just going to double click this, go into my model. What does it do? Just inserts it, just like it did for the wall. It doesn't ask me again, do I need, do I want to load specific types? It just goes, oh, look, the swing single door is already here. So just use whatever the last type was that somebody had chosen in the model. Great. So I can, insert a different type if I want to. But if I want now to load a different type, or maybe I want to replace the wall that's in my project here, how do we do that? Well, let's take a look at the next major area here, which is right-click apparently, options. There we go, right-click options. This is what we're looking at. So what happens when I'm in Hive if I right-click? Okay, you'll notice there's open. I can open this file. This is just like me grabbing this family and editing it, opening it up directly in the family editor, the original file. It will let me open that if I really want to. Typically, that's not really needed. I don't usually do this, but it's a possibility. Usually I use it in my project and I'll make changes for my project. I'll edit it out of there and make custom changes if that's even required in the first place. Open can be meaningful on other file types like PDFs or documents. I might right-click and open a document, or right-click and open a PDF to understand about the standards. But usually in that case, I'm just going to double-click it, and it's going to do the right thing. It's either going to, when I double-click Revit content or DWG content, it's going to insert it into my project, load it and insert it. Or if I double-click on a Word document, it's going to open it. It knows what to do with the double-click. But here we're talking about right-click. What are the other options? Well, there's load. In the case of Revit, load is the stock double-click action. When I double-click it, it loads it, and if it's already in here, it uses it. That's what load does. In fact, if I click load right here, it will do the exact same thing it did as when I double-clicked it. It just checks to see, is it the same thing? Oh, it is. Don't prompt anything, just do it, just use it, just move on, right? Well, now there's a new option here on the right click, reload, okay? That's another function. There's also some other things that are available here to me. Some of them, because I am a BIM manager at my company, I have a couple of extra options. If I was a typical HIVE CMS end user, I wouldn't have the option to update. I also wouldn't have the add content button. So we can ignore this one for now. Those of you who are BIM managers and HIVE CMS admins, we'll talk about this feature later. There's detail that will let you get more information about this door. It's the exact same thing as you choosing the details pane here. In fact, you can see the icons even the same. That'll open up the details panel and let you see more about it. There's the concept of favoriting content. In fact, in this case, this one is some of my favorite content, and it gives me the ability to remove from my favorites. Now, we're going to talk more in depth about favorites in a future session and how you can leverage that to strategically find content even faster if it's stuff you use regularly, but this is one of the options here. Again, BIM manager option here for making a new custom preview image. I have some extra tools here about controlling what library it's in, what tags it belongs to, and I can even delete it from this list. But most of us as end users are going to have the option of open, load, reload, and details, and probably add to and remove from favorites. You'll have those 5 typical options, and there might be a few others. And we'll talk about some of those others in future sessions and why you might see them and what those options might do. But today, we're talking about the right-click and loading of content using it. So we're going to talk next here about the reload. Actually, no, before we talk, forget it. We'll talk about reload now. I was going to talk about inserting multiple things, but we're going to skip that, and we're going to talk about reloading and updating content first, and we'll come back and talk about loading multiple things here in just a minute. This door already exists in my project. Now, it's not any different. I didn't make any changes to it, but what happens if I do reload this instead of just loading? Now, you remember, loading brings it in if it doesn't already exist, but if it does exist, it just starts the insert command for it. It places a new door of that style, of that family. If I reload, though, it does something a little bit different. Notice how it pops up the family type selector again? I happen to know I've already got these 2 types in my project, but if I wanted a new one, maybe I want this flush panel 30 by 84 door instead of the 36 by 84 door. If I want this one in my project, I can choose a new type and load that selected type. And it's going to bring in one new type. It's going to do the one-time upgrade again because it has to grab the family and load that type in. But now I've got one new type, and that's the one that it's actually inserting into my project model. So hollow metal flush 30 by 84 is the one that it's actually placing. And I can drop that out here wherever this belongs. It's got the right dimensions because it came in from my type catalog. We can even visually see it's about 4 inches smaller in size, or 6 inches rather smaller in size. But yeah, that's just right-click, reload. Now, that was a pretty simple one because these doors are the same. But what if we go back and re-search again, type A, and we go find that wall type that we used earlier, this 4 7/8 inch wall that we had very intentionally made different in our model? If you remember, when I double-click this, it just draws what was already there. It doesn't redefine the wall in any form or fashion. That is the same exact thing, we already talked about this, as right-click load. But now let's see what happens when I right-click reload. When I click reload here in just a moment, I want you to kind of watch what happens out here in the model. As I click reload, these walls are actually going to update. They should update. Yep, look at that. They all changed. It redefined my wall to now be the original definition of that 4 7/8 inch wall right here. It didn't give me a new one, and typically Hive won't. Every once in a while it will, depending on how different it is and how that object was created, but usually it will just update the definition of that one element that's already in use in your model. So understand, right-click reload, depending on what you're reloading, may have some far-reaching ramifications. That might change physical sizes of rooms because the wall got thinner by, 8 inches, give or take. That's potentially a significant change, but that might be meaningful. That might be what you want to have happen. But yeah, that reload will redefine elements in your project model with what is coming out of the Hive space. Just double-clicking uses it, loads it. Load just loads it, same as double-click. Reload redefines it. That's pretty key, okay? That's how you can bring in the updated definition. So if somebody on your team makes a new variant and they fix a problem with something, right-click reload. You can get the latest version brought into your model. Understand that there's properties that are probably going to change. Now, what does that mean if we were to search something like a document, shared coordinates? See what shows up for this. Yeah, establishing shared coordinates, right? What are the right-click options here? Open, load, reload. So you still get the same options. But really, when I double-click on this, it's not going to load it at all because it's not Revit content. So this option doesn't really make sense in the case of a PDF. It's just there because most content has the option of load. Similarly, reload doesn't make a lot of sense because it's the same document. It's not a big deal. So if I double click on this, this is going to open up in whatever my typical PDF reader happens to be, which should be for me. Where is it? It should be my Edge browser. Double click. Thank you. There we go. Maybe I didn't double click it the first time. This opens up in my Edge browser. If you double click on this again, what's it going to do? Well, this, unlike Revit, isn't going to just use what was already there. It's going to open it up again. And if I right click and load it, it's going to open it up again. And if I right click and reload it, it's going to open it up again. So all three of these options, double click, well, four options, double click, open, load, and reload for most of the non-Revit, non-AutoCAD files is basically just open. It's just going to continually open that same exact document multiple times. So really the right click on content is most meaningful in Revit and in AutoCAD in those specific design apps, because it's going to try to use that content. All right, let's go to the next topic here, which is inserting multiple pieces of content. How do we do that? Because sometimes I don't want to just do one by one. Well, let's go back here and see. Let's do that same search again. Type a quote. I don't like the fact that lowercase t, even though it doesn't affect anything at all. I don't like it. It's a personal thing. I want it to be capital T just because I'm that way. I have 6 wall types here that show up. Now I've only loaded the one into my project, and maybe I want to load all 6 of them into my project and have all 6 available for me at my fingertips, right? I don't want to have to go double click each one at a time to bring it in, which I could do. I could go double click this and then draw something, and double click this and draw something, and not bloat my model. But if for some reason I wanted all 6 of these, fantastic, right click load. And it's going to bring into my design environment all 6 of them. If this was a component family like a loadable door or a loadable window or piece of furniture, air terminal, you name it, it's going to give me the type selector for each one if there's more than one type available, and I can be selective for each individual family which types it is I want to load. Now this is going to take it a second because it has to cache those files and bring them in, load the 6 components in. But the nice thing is, as an end user, I don't have to go find where the original source model was, open it up, probably wait for a version upgrade, and then transfer project standards and get every conceivable wall in my project. I just wanted to load these 6 in. And now if I call up the wall command here and I go drop this list down, all of those wall types are now available for me. You might notice when I load multiple items, Hive does not initiate the draw command. That's important. Does not initiate draw when you right click and load multiple items or reload multiple items into your project. And the reason for that is because you may have found a whole collection of stuff. Some might be doors that need placement into walls. Some might be, lighting fixtures that don't need placement in anything. Potentially they're unhosted. It might be walls, might be, a number of items, might be a PDF document that goes along with that, might be a model group. Hive doesn't know. So when there's more than one item selected, even if they are the same exact category, it does not initiate the draw command in any fashion. It just loads them into the active model, and then you're able to initiate that draw command whenever you want, whether you want to place a door or load a component or place an air terminal or you name it. You control when that inserts, but it did load them into the active model once it's done. All right. Let's see here. Was there anything else about this that I wanted to cover about the right-click options and loading content? I don't think so. I think that covers all of it. So with that, what I want to do is jump into our questions and answers session. Keeping in mind, double-click, we know loads or uses what was already there. Right-click open will open up the original file in your active design app. Which you probably don't want to do normally for Revit content or AutoCAD content. It's great for PDF content if you wanted to open that up. Load will load it just like double-click does in the case of Revit, and reload will redefine it in your active model. All right, that's the quick review about this. So I wanted to take a look at the questions window here. If you do have questions, by the way, go ahead and type them in, because I'm all about answering your questions live in today's discussion. There was a question, this is kind of more of a manager-based question, but I'm going to answer it anyway. Can you upload training videos to the Hive? Yes, technically you can. I don't recommend it, not directly. What I would recommend instead is uploading your training videos to the like a YouTube or a Vimeo or something like that, and then placing a link to the video in Hive. And the reason I recommend that is because if you upload the video to Hive, before an end user, one of your designers can use it, it has to cache the videos to re-download the video to their workstation and then play it from their workstation, which takes longer. If you place the video in some online streaming service, maybe you make it private, just able to be viewed by the link. Then when the user finds the link, the shortcut, just like you have a shortcut on your desktop, you can shortcut to videos in YouTube or Vimeo or whatever. Then when they double click on it, it opens up that streaming platform, which is purpose built to very rapidly represent and display and play videos. So can you upload training videos to Hive? Yes, I wouldn't. I would upload the video to a streaming service and then upload a link to Hive to that video. We'll talk about that kind of in a future manager training session though. So I saw the question, I wanted to answer it here, even though it's not necessarily relevant to the using of content within here. But that's kind of the glory of the questions and answers period, right? I can answer all the questions, it's all right. Let's see, does that work with family? Oh, there was a question about the templates that I used earlier. Let me re-search for my templates here so you can kind of see what this was. This runs a search for everything. I searched for my library templates CTC where I have my templates organized, and I'm forcing this to only show my Revit content. And by the way, I did the only show Revit content in my filter, which is something that we're going to talk even more in depth about in one of our future sessions. But when I apply that, it shows me just, as you might indicate here, Revit content. If I don't check that, it'll show me all of the templates that exist in there, including Revit content. You might notice I've got some templates here about how to deal with LOD. I've got my letterhead. I've got some Excel templates inside of here. An example about an XLTX, an Excel template. All these files work in the Hive, and you guys can consume these all out of Hive as well. In fact, even my presentation PowerPoint template is in here. And that's how I start building all of my new presentations, because that PowerPoint exists here. But when I'm doing this for the purpose of Revit, I'm filtering this on purpose. And then I was able to use my starter project here that is a Revit project file in RVT. And the question is, does that same kind of thing work with project templates? Yeah, absolutely. Could it work with family templates? Sure, it could. Would I do it with family templates? Probably not, because family templates just automatically get installed on everybody's computers. As BIM managers, I'm just going to start a new family template, usually generic model or some kind of hosting, and just use that. And my end users don't typically need to find that here in the Hive space. Could you? Sure. Would I? It's debatable. It's up to you, but you can. You can absolutely do that. Yeah, so would I show how to use content, I'm assuming this is, from a detail project. We will be talking in a future admin session about loading stuff out of or processing content into Hive from something like a detail project. But what I'm going to do is show you from an end user's point of view how they consume it, since we're talking about using Hive today as an end user. I do have typical details in my library. So let me go search for these real quick. I'm going to show you how to filter for this. My details are in my MEP content library. They're all MEP details. And what I'm going to do is filter specifically for views. Views, there we go. Okay, view. See, I can just type here to get my list really quickly. Views is the category that I want. And this will go find me all of the objects all objects in my library MEP productivity pack that's Revit content and that whose Revit category is views. And so it's going to give me back some things. To use this out of Hive, it is exactly the same as my doors and my walls and my template. I can simply double click and that will load that into my active project and set that view active. Or I can right click and use load, or I could even do reload and it will try to replace that drafting view if it's possible, or if not, it'll rename the drafting view and give me a new one. But load of drafting views is the same as every other piece of content. I simply double click on this and it will load that drafting view here into my active model. And this is probably coming from 2018. So it's probably going to do a one-time upgrade. And then it's going to bring it in. And if it's organized properly in my project browser, it'll group correctly, though this came from a different kind of template. And therefore it doesn't know how to organize in my project browser in my architectural project. But it did bring that drafting view in with all of its properties and all of its settings, and everything's happy. So can I use this? Absolutely. You can also, by the way, not just do views if you want, but you can do sheets as well, fully assembled detail sheets with schedules and drafting views and legends on them, and you can load a full sheet. Now, a full sheet takes a little longer because there's probably going to be a lot of drafting views on it, but you can absolutely load sheets as well. Same thing, double click, loads it in. Okay. Let's see here, other questions that pop in. There's a lot of admin-based questions today, which is good. I'm glad those of you who are administrators are attending, but I'm going to have you pause on those and wait until we talk about processing content into Hive, because we want to make sure we handle that in its own session where I will try to answer all those questions in detail. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like all the rest of these are content processing type questions, and I'm gonna keep y'all on the hook and make you sign up for that admin webinar where we talk about processing content into Hive and all of the stuff that surrounds that. Keep this focused on the end users today. I'm not seeing any other user-based questions about right-clicking, loading content, opening, how to consume the content. So with that, what I think I will do today is say thank you all. I always enjoy when you show up live and we get a chance to interact. I hope you join me for the rest of these series. We have 2 series running right now. One is the user series, this is session 2, and the other one is a manager series where we go deep into the management stuff. So all those of you who have asked manager-based questions today, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just going to make you wait until we talk about that in the manager series. But again, thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you all back here. And I hope that those of you who are managers, you can leverage this session with your users as perhaps a little offset to your training and have them reference how they can consume this content. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time.